All right, and we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the I Read a Book Once podcast. I am your host, and I'm about to do my D&D intro. I'm not a dungeon master today. I'm doing an interview with the wonderful, the beautiful, the handsome, the glorious John Longbox. Hello, John. Thank you for coming
Hey,
on.
how you doing? So you do Dungeons and Dragons and comics?
Yeah, so it's been really a lot of fun. I really got started with Dungeons and Dragons in edition. I'm one of those crazy people who came in
Okay.
there. And I've been playing 5th edition since it started. And while I've been kind of done and over with 5th edition, but that's what my players have been wanting to play. So that's what we're all, especially after this yellow debacle that's past 2 something years, we've been done. Once we finish the current campaign, probably moving on to Pathfinder.
I never played Pathfinder. I mean, I grew up playing D&D. I started with the red box set with the dragon on the cover, and I always said that D&D was flawed, and I always said that D&D was purposely flawed. That it was never a perfect game because they always wanted you to get this supplement and this supplement, and now we're going to revisit it and do a second edition. So I just stopped at second edition. You know, I was like, it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be flawed. Just make it work. So I never played beyond second edition, but I play a superhero role playing game called Villains Vigilantes, and I got that at second edition. The first edition was really bad. The second edition, it's flawed too, but I wrote up like 150-page rules, home rules to it, and I just use those, and that's my game. And I don't even play Dungeons and Dragons anymore. I still use Villains Vigilantes. Second edition came out in 1983, and that's what I use to role play. If we play superheroes, I use it. If we play Dungeons and Dragons, I use that same system. Sci-fi, I use. We did a pirates adventure. We did it all, and I use the same system because I find that Dungeons and Dragons, it just drives me nuts. It's like, okay, so you have an 18 strength, you have an 18 endurance. Now, maybe third, fourth, and fifth editions changed this, but it was just like, so you have an 18 strength. Okay, that gives you a little bit of a modifier. You have an 18 endurance. What does it give you, like +3 hit points or something like that? And then you roll your dice, and you can still have 1 hit point. You're like, I didn't like that everything was independent of everything else. Like with Villains and Vigilantes, your strength gives you a modifier, your endurance gives you a modifier, like all your statistics give you a modifier, and then you multiply them all together, and then your weight gives you a modifier. So it just makes more sense that if you're a 350-pound guy, you have more hit points than a 100-pound guy. You know what I mean? So I like how each one of your attributes contributes to something else in a mathematical way. And I also like in Villains Vigilantes, like you have hit points, just like Dungeons and Dragons, but you also have stamina. So like, if you're swinging your sword, it's costing stamina to do it. So you can make a decision at the beginning of every fight. Do I want to like do 3 attacks and risk taking this guy out right now, but I'll be really tired? Because the more you do in a short amount of time, tires you out, just like real life. You can imagine that. So like, okay, I don't have the time. I need to go rescue that guy, or this building's on fire. I need to get out of here. So you launch like 3 attacks, and you hit twice, and you take that guy out. But now you're exhausted. Or okay, there's a whole bunch of guys out here. I got to pace myself. I throw 1 punch at a time, kind of thing. I like that. And if you get to 0 hit points in Villains Vigilant, you're not dead. You're unconscious. If you had 0 stamina points, you're exhausted, and you're just like walking around, like barely moving because you just beat. If you're at 0 hit points and 0 stamina, then you're dead. So like Dungeons and Dragons, like you're you got 4 hit points, you get shot for 5. Okay, you're dead. There's like nothing to do. And there's ways that like you can have skills that you could roll with the punch. So you get like, if you got like boxing skills, somebody could punch you, and you could absorb it. So instead of hit points, you take a stamina loss, and you know what I mean. I find this to be more fun and makes more dynamic games. How's that for nothing to do with comic books? But you mentioned I could talk for 20 minutes about anything.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard you talk about Villains and Vigilantes. It's like that's the game I really gotta try out because we done a superhero game before, but we basing on the name Mutants and Masterminds. That's what it was. That's the one we played.
Mutants and Masterminds. Yeah, okay. That's not White Wolf Games, is it?
I'm not sure about it. Just know it's kind of straight superhero tabletop.
Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with this. Aberrant, that was White Wolf. That was set in the same like game as like Vampire the Masquerade and everything. Then there was a Mutants and Masterminds. I can't remember who did that one. There was Champions, then Marvel superheroes, DC superheroes. Yeah, I tried them all, and I like Village Vigilantes because it's the most mathematical. You know, it makes sense. Like there's, you know, you randomly make your stats, and then all the stats have little charts that you know, and if you're a player, as long as I know the charts, you don't need to memorize them. So I know whenever I say charts, people are like, oh no, like as long as the DM knows the charts. So all you really need to know is my strength is 18. That means I'm really strong and I'm going to be able to take a lot of punishment. You know, my endurance is 18. That means I'm not going to get tired and I can take a lot of punishment. You know what I mean? Like there's really no reward for having a high agility in Dungeons & Dragons. I guess it gives you a plus to hit or something like that.
At least in these older editions, like we've been playing editions in from my own personal experience now that I've been playing. With 5th edition, it's almost the exact opposite. At the point, especially what the players are at now, they maxed out the level.
Oh, really?
They're almost impossible to kill. The biggest challenge that the players have been having recently is their own paranoia. Because
oh yeah, it's funny because even in a superhero game, I remember I was playing with the guys, and they were all first level superheroes. So just think of like 3 Robins are getting together, and they know that the guy they're after is he's in a Radio Shack, an old Radio Shack, and he's hiding out in the Radio Shack. They spent 40 minutes coming up with a plan to come into the Radio Shack to attack basically a mugger. You know, it's like, you know, but I just sat there, you know, I was actually doodling and everything. I was just like, you know, they were enjoying their paranoia.
This is especially hilarious because this is with this 5th edition game we've been last hurrah with 5th edition, then I'm done with it. We're moving on to Pathfinder 1st edition, largely because of like the problems you were saying with like, oh, you got to buy this module. Paizo has already moved on to 2nd edition Pathfinder. There will be nothing new official with 1st edition ever again. So I don't feel like I have to keep up with anything new anymore. Like,
oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's why we moved on to 1st edition. So,
well,
we played we played a little bit of 1st edition, and they were so happy for the challenge. Like, yeah, it feels like our choices actually matters, that we actually are like our battle tactics and we place ourselves in the field and on the grid actually matter, and the monsters actually feel like they can hit, not just hit, but pack an actual punch. But at the same time, it's not like so far the other direction where it's like, oh, we got hit by one goblin, well, the whole party's dead now.
Well, at Villains Vigilantes, it's supposed to be superheroes.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to kill, you know, players and non-players. You know what I mean? Like Batman could beat up the Joker 80 million times, you know, and the Joker never dies. So the game is kind of designed like that. So, and I kind of like it. Like even when we're playing fantasy, you know, it's supposed to be like a 4-color superhero. So it's not supposed to be like the Dark Knight Returns, grim and gritty. So I added a lethality, a critical hits, and things like that. So like it makes sense to my players that if I'm punching you in the face, there's a chance for critical damage. But if I'm stabbing you with the sword, that chance is greater. You know what I mean? So I made up a system like that. So as right out of the box rules, if you're using it in a fantasy setting, you're gonna, even with swords, you're gonna just beat orcs unconscious. But I added because it just makes it a little bit more scarier. Like one of the things, like it used to, out of the box, if you play, a guy with the machine gun is gonna spray your character and you're just gonna get knocked out. So now our first level guy with the machine gun is going to make even a Captain America level guy like pause for a second. Okay, we got to, one stray bullet could kill me. So I do like that. We played a vigilante campaign where everybody was like a Punisher type, so nobody had powers. Everybody was a human, and everybody got like sponsored, so they had like bulletproof vests, machine guns, and knives and Garretts and stuff like that. They were going after like a cartel. And one of my players was just like, he's like, I want to play a superhero game. I don't want to play this. I was like, well, just give it one session. Everybody else wants to try it. By the end of the night, he was like, I didn't think it was going to be fun. But I remember his character ran into a room and flipped on a switch so everybody else could see. Oh my God. He was like nervous. And like, he goes, the simple, like a regular superhero would just walk in, flip the light on, and let's go. But it was like scary and dangerous, and he was like firing back, hiding behind the steps, it was like an action movie. He goes, yeah, that was fun. Let's keep doing this. So
that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm going to have to give that a try.
Yeah. Well, if you do get Villains and Vigilantes, message me and I'll send you my house rules.
Absolutely. I'm going to hold you to that. The moment.
Yeah. I just messaged me yesterday and I sent to my house rules.
And so
the house rules are bigger than the actual rule book because it includes all my magic systems and spells and stuff.
You obviously are a huge gamer. Look, I just look behind you and see it.
Yeah, look behind. These are all board games. Yeah.
But you're also writing a comic book. You have written a comic. You've written two of them.
Yes, I have one comic book that's out. Heroic Tales #1 is out, and you can get it on Fund My Comic. It's it's a forever store, so you could go there and if you want Heroic Tales 1 and you go to Heroic Tales 1 on Fund My Comic and back it, I'll send it out tonight. If you want to get Heroic Tales 1 and 2 and you go to the Heroic Tales 2 campaign and back it, Heroic Tales 1 will come with the issue 2 at the end of the summer, because you save postage kind of thing. But so Heroic Tales 2 is going to come out. It's Renzo just finished drawing the last page. There was a miscommunication, and he drew a page wrong, so we had to redo page, one of the pages. Looking back at the script, I understand why he drew what he drew. It was it was my fault. So that has been the only bump, is one page had to be redrawn, and it's being colored. Daniel will have all the pages colored except for the one page that Renzo's currently drawing right now. And then it's just put the files together. The editor will check all the word balloons, make sure I don't have any typos. And, I could start printing. So it looks like, I don't want to jinx myself because I said the last time that I was actually early, and then I saw a huge error and I had to go back to printing, so that delayed it by 3 weeks. But I think I know what I'm doing better this time. It's amazing. It is amazing all the steps that I didn't know when I did my first campaign. My first campaign was just, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's fun. Now I know what I'm doing and it's still fun, but all the surprises, I've anticipated all the surprises. I got myself a little bit more organized, and I know who I can work with and who I can't work with. So I streamlined my team down to like 6 guys. I got Luke Stone from Fund My Comic doing like my pre-press and everything like that. And he is just, a couple of people were so busy that it would take like 2 weeks before they would get to me. Luke, I don't know what he does. He must have he must have his kids working for him because he's so quick.
I don't know. He's a youth minister, if I believe. Maybe have them.
If God wants you to do this guy's pre-press. No, but he's been an instrumental help, so that's good. I got Renzo drawing. Renzo's drawing the whole issue this time. Ron, who did half my book last time, he's kind of semi-retired from art because he opened up a store. But he will be doing a story for me, and I told him take as much time as you want, no rush, because I know he has another business that he's taking care of. So he likes that term. So, and and I just got good news. I can't give all the particulars, but I just got good news that when I say legit, like a comic book that goes out in comic book stores, the guy who writes that comic asked me to do a 12-page story in their annual. So it's going to be Mary Sue meets his character. They have an adventure together, and Renzo will be drawing that, and 12 pages. That's going to be in, I don't want to mention the comic in case things fall through yet, but it'll be in an annual 12 pages, and it's going to be a bunch of 12-page stories by a couple of big names. I can't believe that I'm asked to be in it, because I'm talking big freaking names are going to be in this book. So like I look at it as like I'm the fourth supporting actor in a Robert De Niro movie. Everybody's going to go see this movie because Robert De Niro's in it, but they'll see me as the bartender. Like, you know what I mean? So, I'm sure I'll be the last story in this big, but there's some big names in it. So I'm really excited. So this will be in comic stores.
You must feel like a little kid. I know I would be.
Oh yeah. I'm chomping at the bit because I want to talk about it more, but not until because I'm finalized, and I think another team, but the other two teams aren't finalized yet, and I would look really silly saying that this guy's going to be in it, and then all of a sudden he dropped out. So
yeah, and I don't want you to break.
So that's my.
I'm definitely going to get that book the moment I start promoting.
Right. It'll be in comic book stores. I'm so excited. So that is, I just got this, since I'm working with somebody else's character, I have to be, and it's funny because the first story I thought of was Mary Sue Saves the Day, and his character looks like a jerk. And he was just like, no offense, but my character doesn't do anything but, I'm like, you're right. I got carried away. So my second idea story, because that works because it makes both of their characters the hero.
My fan character is going to be super awesome and neat, and
right.
Like, oops, I accidentally wrote an actual Mary Sue rather than a character named Mary Sue.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I'm excited. So I'm currently writing Patriarch #1. That's going to be my next crowdfunding campaign. Renzo actually is going to start drawing Patriarch #1 now, but as soon as I get him the script for this other comic, he's going to work on that quick because that actually has a deadline. That's got to be in stores. So I actually, the pressure is going to be on. So we'll do those 12 pages first, and then we'll go back to the Patriarch. Yeah, and then, man, I'm so excited. It's the origin. So it's Patriarch #1, the origin of the Patriarch, and I got It's going to be told in 3 parts, and I got 2 parts written already. People are checking them out, and one of my friends was just like, "This surprise comes out of nowhere, man. This is a good surprise." So I'm like, "Oh, good." And he said, "Good use of superpowers." So I'm trying to do original things with super abilities. So I'm excited. So I just got to finish the 3rd part, and then give that to Renzo, and then I'm hoping this weekend start working on the first draft of this 12-page story. Again, I'm trying not to give away who I'm working with, what I'm working with yet until everything's 100% finalized.
We'll drift away from that topic so that we don't have to
Sure.
worry about that.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about Heroic Tales itself. So, wrote the first one, and I had you on for the first one.
Okay.
And you've been up to a lot since I think you got hit by a car at one point after that, or something like that.
July. It's July 17th. So next week will be a year. So I don't know what you know
after that happened to you.
Yeah, so I'm a construction worker. So I was working at the airport on the roof with buildings. When they're going up, there's a roof on it. The roof is tin. So literally working on a tin roof in July is it's like working on tinfoil. So they got, my boss does the right thing. There's coolers full of ice water and stuff. But I was going home early that day, so I normally take the train, but that particular day I was driving in. So, and I was leaving at lunchtime. So I was like, I pack up, I go down, and I'm like, I'm not going to eat anything. I'm going home at lunchtime. I'll go have lunch with my wife. So I was in the car, and the heat got to me. I was all dehydrated. I didn't eat anything, and I just saw like a tunnel. And then I wake up, boom, and I'm in a tree. I broke my neck, wrecked. The thing that bothers me the most is I wrecked that car. I love that car. It was a reliable little car. And no surgery, nothing, just had to wear a neck brace. I was out of work for 6 months. So I was in a neck brace when I was on your channel?
I didn't notice it, but I am blissfully unaware.
No, you would have noticed. I was probably out of neck brace at that point.
That was,
and
campaign had already, I think it was like from wrapping up.
Oh, so I was probably out of the neck brace by that point. So yeah, that happened. Knock on wood, everything worked. No surgery, nothing. And the odd thing is, I've had a pain in my neck for like 20 years. I don't have it anymore. I don't recommend breaking your neck as relief for neck pain, but
I'm sure a chiropractor could have done that better.
It worked for me. So Heroic Tales is an outgrowth of me playing Villains and Vigilantes. Me and my buddies have been playing this game since the 80s, and it's all set in the same world. And every kid who plays role playing, I'm sure even you are like, let's write a novel, let's do this. Well, you want to make a movie screen about your campaign. So I just started taking some of the best stories and I started making comic strips out of it. And then I was like, wait a minute, I can't use their characters. So I started making up my own characters. So Patriarch is new to Heroic Tales. He's never been in my campaign. Mary Sue is new to Heroic Tales. But all the other characters are either NPCs or my friends' players. And it's funny, they all got mad. Why didn't you use my characters? I was like, I didn't think I had the right to. So there'll be more and more of my friends' characters in the comic, NPCs that I made up. And Heroic Tales originally was going to be, every issue was going to be another superhero. And I figured the Patriarch was a good first issue. I like his costume. He's everything positive about men and masculinity. Like, he's a good father. He's a loving father. He's a good husband. He loves his wife. His wife loves him. He's a protector. He's not like I always say he's more of a protector superhero than an aggressor superhero. Like, if you read the first issue, you'll see that when he shows up, the first thing he does is he tries to de-escalate the situation. Like a dad doesn't just come in your room and start hitting you. Your dad comes in your room and goes, "What are you doing up? It's a school night. You got to go to bed." You know what I mean? A dad that starts throwing punches first is not a good father. So that's the way he is. And he's a conservative. He's religious, but he's not preachy. Like, he's everything that I think is positive. Like, he and his wife, they homeschool their children. They homestead, they raise their own food, because they're supervillains. You'll see why by issue 3 of Patriarch. So I wanted to make this like homage to Superman. So like, he lives on a farm. Now, what if Superman got married and had a family and everything like that kind of story? And people seem to really like it. So when I told him that he wasn't going to be in issue 2, people were like, but we like him. We want it. So I made a compromise. I was like, okay, the Patriarch will always be one story in the two stories of every issue of Heroic Tales. And then I started to realize I could do his own book. He could have his own comic. Like, I got a lot of stories for him. So that's what I'm going to do. I don't know. Like, right now I can only swing one comic at a time, but I'm thinking I might do so my next campaign is going to be Patriarch number 1. And then my third campaign, it might be Patriarch number 2 and Heroic Tales number 3 at the same time. I don't know. We'll try that, because I got a bunch of other artists working for me now. A bunch of people like, I like you. You're a cool guy. Can I can I work with you? I was like, what's your rates? And let me see your art. And everybody's so good. Like I got Luke Stone working on a story called The Sleeper Agent. I got Stippling Vaughn working on a story called The Printer's Devil. Fabrizio Aiello is working on a story called Big Iron. And why can I think? Ron Mosicki's working on a Raven story. And I know there's one more that DC Miller's working on Bikini Girl. Bikini Girl is a golden age superhero comic book that exists in the Patriarch's world. So it's going to be the Patriarch's kids are in the attic and they find the CGC'd Bikini Girl golden age comic book. No, they break it open and they start reading it. And the Patriarch's like, that comic book was valuable. You know what I mean? And then he's just like, but then the last, so that's going to be the framing sequence. Then they read the comic. Then the last couple of pages, they're going to be sitting on his lap reading the comic. And it's like, this is the value of comics, not so, because I'm anti slabbing the comics. You know what I mean? Comics are for reading, not turning into plastic cards that you can never open and read and check out and share with your family. And then people always say the same thing. Get two. We're talking about golden age comics. You're lucky to have one.
And look, if it's not like put on a stone, if we really wanted to preserve it, it'd be in a
right.
That's the one that gets just read it.
Yeah. So I'm hoping I could swing maybe like every campaign's two issues, and then I have a secret project that I just like to let people know that I got a secret project based on the real world and mythology mixed together. I got Oscar Carano and Tonic Bowl. We're working on a comic called Eddie is Doomed, and I know there's one more thing that I can't think of right now. But that's so I got a lot of stuff in the works.
Yeah. Like got a lot of ideas. Are you afraid about burnout at all?
I'm not burnout because I'm not joking. I gotta, you play Dungeons & Dragons, and I have all my sheets and notes from 40 years of playing superhero role-playing games. So like I had a website, a forum called the Villains and Vigilantes Forum, where we would play, and then that night before I went to sleep, I'd write up the main events for every story, and then all my players, we would comment, this is what I'm going to do next time, blah, 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 you should do this. And I had that up for 40 years, also, or for 20 years. That just came down because it was so old. It just got harder and harder and harder and more expensive to maintain. So we downloaded all that information, and we're looking at a new software to launch it again. So I got a billion ideas. I'm not joking. I must have like 120 superhero characters. I got like 1,000 bad guys. So I got the thing is, it's just I want Renzo to draw it all, and Renzo's can only work so fast, and then he's working with 2 other people. So you know what I mean? So I could only swing. So that's why I'm going to work with a few other people. Like if I do more Printer's Devil stories, I only want to work with Stippling Vaughn, because this is the look of the character, and I don't want it to change every time you see the Printer's Devil, I want you to see his unique artwork. And, every time you see the Sleeper Agent, I want to see Luke Stone's artwork, things like that. Right. And look at that artwork that Renzo has. It's so good. Look at that.
All the Renzo's art.
Yes. This is Renzo. Oscar Carano colored the Mary Sue story, and David De La Silva colored the Patriarch story. So I want to stay with that. So Oscar's going to color everything, and Daniel's only going to color the Patriarch. But then the Patriarch's going to have his own book. So Oscar will have his own book, and Daniel will have his own book. And then Mary Sue she's her real name is Mary Sue. She's Chinese. She's 3rd generation American. Her grandparents fled Mao Zedong in the 50s. They were Roman Catholic, so they had 3 choices: die, convert, or flee. And they chose flee. And they came to America with nothing. And it's like the rags to riches story. They opened up a little corner store, and then their son turned it into a chain, so it's Sue Mart. And now Mary is born into wealth. She's pretty, she's genius, she's got like 3 PhDs, but so she's the perfect girl. But you see, that's her grandmother right there in the hospital. She's perfect in the eyes of her grandmother. You know what I mean? So she doesn't drink, she doesn't smoke, she doesn't fool around. So she's like a naive virgin when she goes into the big city, and things happen. Things don't go the way she plans. But what she does do is she gets the ability to rewrite reality. So she has like the ultimate power. So she's the ultimate Mary Sue. But if you know me, you know that there's costs to power. So she's learning that there's a cost to this ability that she now has. And she's like, do I have the right to decide literally who lives and who dies and everything? So she's reluctant to use her powers.
So the whole story is going to be her exploring. Should be doing.
Well, she doesn't know she doesn't know she has her in this first appearance. She gets her powers, so it's her origin
story.
Right. So she gets her powers in the first story, and then Heroic Tales 3 is she deals with the consequences of what she did in this story to show you, it's funny because the more I look at these sample pages, the more I realized I spoiled the whole story, but so far nobody picked up on it. But I know because I wrote the story. But so she did something that I'm not going to tell you because buy the book. And then the second issue, she's dealing with the consequences of what she did, and she realizes really quick in Heroic Tales 3 that she's superhuman, that she got the powers. Kind of what her powers are. She's brilliant, so she's quick on her feet, but she also realizes she doesn't know how to fight. She's 115 pounds, so she's gonna, have somebody teach her how to fight because she knows she has a responsibility. She was given these powers for a reason, but she's, it's kind of like the butterfly effect. If I change reality to do this, she's not smart enough to think of every consequence, every possible outcome of. You know what I mean? Like think of it this way. I passed out in my car, and when I fainted, I veered to the left. Now, what if she made it so that, now what if in reality I went to the right and I hit another car? You know what I mean? And Mary Sue's like, oh, she changes reality so that I faint to the left and then I hit the tree and die. So Mary Sue thinks I get to pick, does that guy live or does that guy live? And she doesn't want that responsibility, So
Fighting of other people,
right? Like she's
crushing.
Like, right. So that's the consequences of her powers. Is I'm a big fan of Marvel Comics. Yeah, I mean I like DC too, but I like Marvel Comics because when I was a kid, they had these great superpowers and their weaknesses made sense. Like the Thing became this invincible, strong creature who could do a lot of good, but at the cost of his humanity. Spider-Man realized I was going to be. He was on his path to villainy. He was going to use his powers for personal gain, and I'll show all you people who don't understand. And then because he was selfish, his uncle died, and it taught him, oh, geez, I got to be responsible. I love all that stuff. Captain America was a man out of time dealing with the guilt of Bucky, which you don't see too much anymore. But I loved all of those real world weaknesses as opposed to Superman has a magic rock, kryptonite, or the color yellow, things like that. I never liked. So I try to give each one of my characters like a really, I don't want to say debilitating weakness, but a weakness that makes sense. And Mary Sue's weakness is the fact that she doesn't feel that she has the right to use her powers. It's, you know what I mean? If she's picking what is she? She picks this little girl, dies over this little girl because there's a car accident, or you know what I mean? Like she either choice, she picked somebody's death. That's an awesome responsibility. Like the next issue, one of the main characters is Captain Atlas, and he's like Superman level. And boy, does he have a weakness that I can't wait for you guys to see what his weakness is. You know, like I find that like having a down to earth hero is more relatable than an unbeatable hero, which is why I like Marvel characters better. But like I got to admit, even Captain Atlas is overpowered. You know, he could give Superman a run for his money, but I think once you learn his weakness, it more than makes up for his power. You know, I love that kind of stuff. Like the Patriarch. Did you read issue number 1?
I unfortunately missed out on getting issues. I have gotten
okay.
the backup.
Okay.
I was very excited.
Oh, cool. Oh, well, not cool.
Yeah, the old cover D, right in the giant ant.
Oh yeah, that's Michael T. Gilbert. Yeah,
because that was the cover I was really liking.
Oh, cool. That's my wife's favorite too. That's Michael T. Gilbert. He did Hellboy. He did Mr. Monster in the 80s. So when I asked him to do a cover, he goes, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "Do whatever you want." You know, he read the script and he was like, "Okay, I'm going to do kind of an homage to a Superboy comic that I really like, because the fighting the robot ants and everything." So I love that cover. That's also the cover Mark Miller ordered too. So I love that. So yeah, all right. So what you ordered that, so that's what you'll be getting. Cool. But minor spoiler to you then. The villain in issue 1 figures out how the Patriarch's powers actually work. So, in his second appearance, he's going to be a bigger threat. You know, that in issue 1 of the Patriarch, which I'm again working on right now, Patriarch it's revealed that he's kind of living a lie, not of his own choice.
Aware that he's living a lie.
No, he's complicit in it. Not anything like sinister or sneaky, but I'm trying to be. But what I've already don't you think if you could get spider powers by being bitten by a radioactive spider,
would be, this is something.
Yeah, the Russians would be working on it. The Chinese would have a whole spider division. They would be capturing people and biting them with different spiders at different radioactive isotopes. Oh, that guy just got cancer. That guy turned crazy. Oh, that guy got power. You know what I mean? That's what they would be doing. So in my world, whenever a superhero arises, there's a government agency that shows up, like the Men in Black, and they get to the superhero and say, like, you can't tell people how you got your powers. This is the origin that you're telling people. So, but we'll give you financing, we'll give you a costume, health, medical. You know what I mean? Like, we'll your kids. If you have kids, okay, we'll get your kids scholarships and things like that. So, when he got his powers, he was a 20-year-old kid. He made this deal with but you have to make the deal with the government. You think the government's, you know what I mean? Like because they don't want the Russians, the Chinese to know how to get superpowers. So there's a whole big government conspiracy. So every superhero in my world has two origins: their real origin and the origin that the government releases so that people are on who's chasing. So he's sick of living this lie about his origin.
Have you ever read a book, Soon I Will Be in?
I have it on my bookshelf and I've never read it yet.
It is one of those books. I wouldn't say it's like one of the best books. It is pretty good. Part of the big theming of that book is the fact that your powers are always you. One of the characters in that she talks about, like, people always only see like the flashy side of it. You never have to take the bathroom or think about what they have to do with them when they're alone, unbored, and desperate at night. In it, she actually talks about like how she went to work for a government organization and basically promised that she's going to be the next generation of warfare. But she just ends up being like, "Oh, you're going to be the girl that we send into drug busting operations in Colombia after everything's gone gone to shit. So after it's all gone bad, you're the shock troop that's going to go in and basically get our boys out of there. And during this whole thing, she's like, I never even read the full documentation of what my origin was, or that I wanted to be an astronaut. It's like, because how she actually got her powers is not, it's not as creative. She just got hit by a dump truck, and she's one in a million case worked.
Yeah. Although, and now everybody else would be like, "What was in that dump truck?" and copying it, and and then getting hit by stuff, and like,
even
like,
the villain of that.
How many stupid kids? What's that?
Yeah, even the villain of the book, he makes mention briefly of, yeah, and then everybody else try to copy the accident, and not a single person has ever been able to make.
Right. There was a comic called Rising Stars, and in it, all these kids that were born at this certain time, like within this 5-minute time frame on this date, had potential superpowers. So the government like rounded up all of these kids, and not all of them had powers, and they couldn't just shoot them to see if they were invulnerable. So they were running them through tests and everything like that. And then, because you had to find out what activated your powers. So some of the more daring kids were like jumping off roofs and then finding out that they were invincible, or finding out that they could fly. And then a bunch of other kids were jumping off roofs and breaking their legs and everything like that. I think that's what would happen if you could get superpowers. People would be copying it. Like, I did read that some kid forced himself to get bitten by spiders trying to get spider powers. It doesn't sound like an intelligent kid, but I remember, you're gonna laugh at me, but I was in kindergarten and I jumped off the roof of my house with an umbrella, thinking I could use it as a parachute. Like, it didn't work. Yeah, but
as a kid, my grandfather, he had like this whole big swing set up, and there was a rope on the back end of the slide, and this swing set was right next to a tree. And I thought that if I yelled while going off like Tarzan on that rope, I would be as invincible as Tarzan.
Yeah,
turned out I was more George of the Jungle, because I smacked straight into that tree.
Right.
But yeah, love it. I mean, I remember when I was like 3, I used to think cartoons were so.
Yeah, I remember my nephew put a towel in his shirt like a cape and was running around the house, and he's asking, "Can you see me?" Like, he thinks he's so fast now that we can't see him. We're like, "No, where'd you go? Where'd that voice come from?" It's so, just imagine if there really was superheroes. And that's one of the things. The patriarch has 7 kids, and every once in a while they're like, "Are we going to get powers?" And the father's like, "No, the powers, they don't transfer in my world. There's nothing happened to the patriarch's genes, so his powers don't get transferred, and they're kind of disappointed. Your dad is flying around, lifted up, engine, trains and battling monsters and stuff, and you got to go get a job. You know what I mean? Because you're never going to get those powers. You're never going to live up to what your dad could be. It's kind of, so there will be a little bit of family drama, Right. Yeah, that's another thing, is like the oldest son is 19. He doesn't want to live on the farm anymore. He wants to go meet girls, go to college, have his own life. And the patriarch is like, he got his powers in public. People know his secret identity. You know what I mean? So like, how do you go? Yeah, my dad's the patriarch. Oh, really? You're now my hostage, kind of thing. So that's going to be some drama. And what does he say? No, you can never leave. You are my hostage. So, you know what I mean? I want to try to make like some drama stories about that. Yeah.
Real quick, I also stream Twitch.
Okay.
A raid over on. Hello, Nathan. Thank you for coming,
Oh.
and the 5 people you brought with you. This is
cool.
John Longbox. He is a comic book sales. It is fully funded at this second book.
Right.
Go take a look.
It's on Fund My Comic on Heroic Tales 2.
Dude, I just dropped the link.
Cool.
Coming by, Nathan.
Yeah, issue number 2 was funded by issue number 1. I do crowdfunding opposite of everybody else. So I paid for issue number 1. So issue number 1 was going to happen no matter what. Now, all the money that I made for issue number 1 funded this comic. So this comic is fully funded, and I have a little bit of leftover. So actually, issue number 3 is fully funded, but I made less. So I'm hoping to make it to like 4 or 5 issues. So, the way crowdfunding works is I hope I can make it, raising money. I hope I can make it. But if I'm launching a campaign, that comic is already funded. It's already coming out. You know what I mean? Because I have a full-time job. I don't need to spend this money.
I don't want to get too much into. I know you've been involved in huge drama about with the crowdfunding space, and I don't really want to drag a whole lot. I don't blame
you. I don't blame you either for not wanting to talk about that.
I absolutely do agree with you. There's a lot of problems.
Crowdfunding. You stop me if you don't want me to go into this, but like when I tell my normal friends, the guys at work, about crowdfunding, they just shake their head and said that's ridiculous. So, so I tell normal people, oh, you're pre-ordering. That they understand.
Yeah.
When they say you're taking my money now, and then maybe you'll make a comic book with it, but I said, no, you're pre-ordering. You just pre-order. I gotta, oh, okay. So that's what I do. And I'll stop now because I was just about to start saying stuff I shouldn't say.
Like at the same time, like there's a lot. Like I totally get it. I don't think I'm in that unfortunate space with that. Yeah, I am trying to get as my first book. I go off.
Oh yes.
And actually, in retrospect, like I wanted to have released my first book like 2 years ago. I'm so happy I didn't because I was not ready. It's like, I would have been.
It's rougher than you think. There's a lot of unexpected hurdles, and the more you get done, because you're only as good as your last campaign. I don't care who you are. People are going to look at you. I mean, unless you're like a Graham Dolan who just is an all-around pro, you're only as good as your last campaign. So the more the more you get done, and then you could deliver and look like a hero. I like to think that I got some credit with the indie comics group people, the crowdfund people. Okay, this guy broke his neck and he still made his comic. I had a lot of hurdles, and I still delivered, and on time. And I'm looking to do the same thing again.
Good, and I'm wishing you the best of luck here, man. You got this. Obviously.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. And it's funny because now I can't wait for people to read Patriarch number 1 because, man, I finished a bunch of scripts, so I got a bunch of people working on stuff, and I just can't wait for everybody to see. And now I'm working on, like I said, this mystery secret project that I don't want to announce because, but I think that's going to be awesome. That is going to be the book that everybody goes, oh my God, that is so good. He did superhero stuff, but this book is the book that, people are going to buy for gifts for other people. It's going to be that good. And it's going to be painted too. So it's going to look so good. I can't wait.
The question I have is Patriarch still going to be in Heroic Tales moving on, or is he going to be
issue number 2 is his last appearance in Heroic Tales for the foreseeable future because he's spinning off into his own comic. So Patriarch will be in Patriarch Comics. So that my next crowdfund is going to be Patriarch number 1. It's going to be his origin. So it's going to be broken up into 3 parts. The first part is just an adventure story to set the tone. The second part is going to be the false origin. And then the third part is going to be the real origin. And then an epilogue that is going to bring people up to speed who maybe didn't get Heroic Tales 1 and 2. And then Heroic Tales is going to be what I envisioned. It's going to be two. I'm thinking of maybe following the patterns of, since Patriarch is going to be in 2 stories and Mary Sue is going to be in 2 stories. So I'm thinking maybe every character will get 2 consecutive stories, and then I'll swap it out. But who knows?
Has anybody compared this yet? Halloween franchise where it's supposed to be anthology the entire time, but the first 2 movies were both Michael Myers. So, like, what? Why?
Yeah, people that because that's what happened. People like we like the Patriarch. You got to put the Patriarch like like Patriarch's next appearance was going to be Heroic Tales number 3. But people liked him, so you got to strike. It's kind of, you open up a restaurant and you make this meal, and then people come back the next day like, we want that meal. And you're like, no, I'm not going to do that for another. No, you're going to go out of business. You got to give people what they want. So people want more Patriarch. I'll give more Patriarch. I love the Patriarch. I think to toot my own horn, I think he's kind of important in this time period where everybody's talking crap about dads and fathers and men in general. Toxic masculinity. The funny thing is the bad guy, the wimpy, nerdy guy, he was toxic masculinity. The masculine, cool guy, he was positive masculinity. Like, I didn't realize it when I wrote that story, but you had the Patriarch who was like, he has a wife, he has kids, he has a happy life and everything like that. The bad guy was like everything that's wrong with masculinity. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that when I wrote the story. I just wanted a cool villain. So, people seem to like that. A lot of people are like, yeah, that's a cool character. That's something that's needed right now. And now Mary Sue is a goof on the girl boss. Every movie, we got to have a girl boss. So Mary Sue, I'm like, all right, I'm going to make a girl boss, but I'm going to make her literally perfect and show you that being perfect is not all that it's cracked up to be. And just perfect in the way, what would an 89-year-old grandma consider perfect? She's a virgin. She doesn't drink. She doesn't smoke. She went to college and didn't go to the frat parties. And you know what I mean? She got a 4.0 average and a couple of PhDs. So I just think it's funny is that I'm playing on the idea of perfect. She wants to get married and have babies. Yep. Yeah. And it's funny because Renzo, at first, I think he was just like, all right, I'll draw your story. But by the end, he's like, I love this character. Like, he's very protective of her. Like I was coming up with ideas. He goes, no, that doesn't happen to my girl, Mary.
It's just like, we got to get.
But good, And it's funny because a couple of people like roll their eyes. Oh my God, your character's name is Mary Sue. I was like, yeah, you'll see. Mike Barron said it was an excellent story, so I got that going for me.
Good.
Yep.
Right,
he actually called me. I was like, you got a minute? I'm like, Mike Barron's calling me. Of course I got a minute. And he's like, yeah, your story's good. Yeah, I like this. I like that. And we talked for like 20 minutes. Mike Barron calls me.
We started this talking about gaming, board gaming.
Sure.
One of the things I said that I would like to do, when you're bringing people to a tabletop game, silly things happen, and just one thing I like doing, like being like an old vet swapping war stories. So I thought it would like be funny if like we told like either like something funny or something amazing.
Okay.
And I'll start to kind of like give you an example. I wanted to tell the story of the worst player I had. All right, so this is before. This is like back in 2013, over 10 years, 13 years, and there's just nobody who was playing any sort of tabletop game in my area. So I went to what anybody else in my situation did and went to the internet. Found a group who was willing to let me run. Is one of the earliest games. I barely knew what I was doing. 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Everything's a mess. Like, this guy, he shows up early to the game, great. Had nothing on his character sheet. Fantastic. So I sit there with him and helping him get his whole thing set up. He's barely interactive. And in retrospect, that is warning sign number one. Throughout the entirety of the game, he barely talks to anybody. He does basic of things. He's bored. He's out of it. Everybody else is engaged, at least to some degree, or at least cracking jokes, having fun, whatever. So I didn't think much about it. They kill some wolves. At the end of the combat, he goes, "All right, I want to get freaky with the dead wolves." And we hear him unzip something on. There was no cameras or anything, so it was all microphones. And we hear this audible zzz. And like, did he just unzip his pants? And I just like kicked him immediately from the group. And it's like, no, we're not we're not doing with this weird necrophilia bestiality nonsense. And like,
Oh my God.
and everybody was grossed out, and that group never played together ever again. And it's like,
We used to meet up in a bar and play, and we used that website Meetup, and we would have like 35 people showing up, and this one guy showed up, but with 35 people in the group, you don't get to play game with everybody. So by this guy's third time, I noticed nobody wanted to play with him. So I'm like, all right, it's my group. I'll take all the troublemakers. So I brought him into my game. I'm trying to remember what game it was, but it doesn't matter what game we were playing. And he would just sit there on his phone. And I started to explain the rules. Immediately he starts talking. I go, no talking during rules explanation. All questions will wait to the end. And the girl sitting next to me, Tish, she goes, thank God. Because all he did was like, okay, and this, can I be blue? Yes, you could be blue. Okay. And then do I get a card? It's like, dude, calm down. He's one of those kind of people. So he just sat there and looked at me, and I explained all the rules. And then he's on his phone like this. He's playing some sort of app. And then it's his turn. He goes, how do you play? So I'm
didn't even listen to a word.
So I gave him a little rundown of the game. And then everybody else go to him. He's on his phone. How do you play? I go, put the phone away. We're not telling you how. I explained the rules once. You didn't listen. I explained it again. You're on your phone. I said, we're going to sit here until you go. And nobody's going to help you. Nobody's going to talk, and we just sat there like uncomfortable. I was like furious. And then at the end of the night, I was like, it was nice playing with you. Don't come back. And he was like, I'll put my phone away. I said, no. Life's too short. You've been here 3 times. I've got nothing but complaints about you. See ya. So that was the worst player. The best game experience I've ever had was I went to Florida for Dice Tower Con, and it was like 3:00 in the morning, and it's 24-hour gaming. And my wife is long asleep, and I can't sleep. I've been drinking coffee all day, so I'm up, but I'm getting loopy. You want to sleep, but you can't sleep. So there was a bunch of guys. They were setting up a game of Elder Sign. I don't know if you've ever played Elder Sign, but I call it Cthulhu Yahtzee. So you got a board set up and you roll the dice, and the dice have symbols, and you get 3 chances to get these symbols, and then you could take a card, and the cards usually give you other ways to manipulate the symbols. So we were playing and playing. Now we've been playing for an hour, and I just looked at everybody and I said, here is where I win the game. It's a cooperative game, so we're all on the same side versus the game, and we're this close to losing, and we could win, and I go, here is when I win the game on this die roll. And everybody just was like, ugh. And I rolled the dice, and I swear in my memory, it was slow motion. The dice tumbled, and it was just the perfect 5 symbols, no re-rolls necessary. We all stopped and just screamed, yeah, it was, and everybody just jumped up. We high-fived each other, and everybody was like, yeah, that was just so much fun. It felt so good. And it was 3:00 in the morning, so it wasn't like the whole hall was filled with, but everybody turned around and they cheered us on too. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Now talk about. So we're playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The group that I play with on the channel. This is our first time ever to actually play. We've known each other for, and we thought, hey, it'd just be kind of cool to play a game. The very first game, I knocked out one of the players in a single hit, so that was great. But this is specifically for Miss Saren, Averin in the game. For those, this is her first ever tabletop anything going on, and she is having a blast. That is a great thing to hear. As like, oh,
Right.
I'm having a great time. I'm loving it. I thought I was great about it. We're in about game 3. The characters had gotten a empty building as a reward for a quest, and they decide to turn it into a tavern. It's going to be their tavern where they plan these heists in the base. And they're dealing with a rival tavern owner across the street from them, who is leaving food and all this stuff in the basement out open, trying to get rats. They're trying to figure out where all these rats are coming from. They go down into this new player, Miss Sarah. She is playing a druid in this. And you can see that this is where like all is starting to click. Top game with her is like, oh yeah, I have this spell that allows me to talk to animals, and I can turn into a rat because I'm a druid. And she starts talking to them, and she makes a deal with the rat. Okay, take us to where all the food is, and we'll figure this out. And I was like, oh, that was a bad thing to say. So all the rats in the sewers start burrowing through the basement of their tavern and out into the street. She's like, no, stop. And that's when they had to come up with an excuse to like all the guards, and it's like, because like the streets are getting flooded with sewer rats now, because all the rats are like, we're going to get so much cheese, it's going to be great.
I remember I was playing with the group, and we were playing every Friday night for years. We'd come to my house, I would make chili, and we would just play. And we had about 6 people, but not all 6 of us could show up every time. So everybody had like 3 different characters. And some of the characters were superheroes, some of them were pirates, some of them were D&D adventurers kind of guys. So depending upon who showed up, because I always hate that, like, oh, Dr. Crow's not here, so we got to pretend that you're asleep, and you know what I mean? Or your character's just following us like robotically. So I hate that. If you're not here, we don't do that story. Everybody has to be there for the story, or we do something. So I had 3 different stories running concurrently. And then we played for 4 years. And they started to realize that it was all the same story throughout different worlds. And we were 2 sessions away from the final reveal, and COVID happened. Didn't play. And then, these guys got really weird. They wouldn't come out of their house. Like, these guys all worked from home anyway. They were all like IT guys and stuff like that. So they got really, really weird. And I was just like, well, what are we going to play? And they're like, oh, after there's a vaccination. I'm like, I'm not taking that vaccination. And they got mad at me. We never saw them again. And I'm like, still bothers me that we're 2 sessions away from finishing up like this grand campaign of like all the worlds tied together. And oh man, so like I don't talk about it because that might be a heroic tale story someday, but it would have to be like a 10-issue miniseries. So maybe someday, who knows?
That is heartbreaking.
Have you ever finished the full-on campaign?
We finished a couple of different yes, I finished multiple. Most of these campaigns were instead is when 20th level. That one of the best campaigns channel where I took Curse of Strahd for 5th edition, but I changed it to.
Oh, okay.
That was much fun because suddenly it's vampires and werewolves and zombies, gothic horror monsters. But as the characters are getting more and more exposed to it, it's slowly slipping a little bit more into. They're having to deal with a vampire who's aware of where they're at all times and send minions to spy and harass deals. But at the same time, they got guns. So, and they got dynamite, and they went to my players, Nick and Hex. They got sick of this one particular minion and her family. It's like, okay, we are going to go deal with her now. And
Something happened?
I'm sorry. My wife is trying. I don't know why.
Oh,
I
nothing
think
happened.
it's was that cutting out for you by any chance?
No, not at all. I was listening. I didn't hear anything. I would have told you if you were cutting out.
I don't know. It has to be a problem on actual streaming itself. I've been trying to figure this problem out. It could just be my microphone that I've had 12 years finally starting to go out.
I'm on like a $35 webcam, so I can't complain.
So they decide they're going to go and handle this family now and get them out of their hair. So they just go in, they shoot the guards with guns, kick in the doors. It suddenly becomes like a Wild West shootout. And they're like, "No, we're not dealing with any of this." They start lighting and throwing dynamite that they had. And it was fantastic. They ended up knocking this whole house down. And it in like a game with gothic horror, for them to just suddenly pull out something like that, and all the dice rolls like were working in their favor, and it's just one of those moments where like, yeah, this is finally a moment for the characters to do something really cool.
That's one of the things like I try to stress, and it doesn't always work out, but I try. Like every player's got to be able to do something cool. Yeah, every player, and I'll never forget because we made. I told you we made the vigilantes. Everybody didn't have powers, and one of the girls that played with us, she made a person who's like she spent all her specialty points like doing like forensic information and communicate, which is cool, but that character doesn't get into fights. That's the character that shows up later. So she was just like halfway through the adventure, she was like, I made up an NPC. You know what I mean? And it was really, really hard to get her to have a spotlight. One of the characters made a crazy guy, and he was just like ready to fight at a moment's notice. And she was just like, yeah, he called himself Roach Killer. She's like, it's the Roach Killer show, and I'm like support character 5, and it kind of was. So I tried to come up with like a way to make her character shine more, but then COVID happened. So, but you got to think of that character generation. Like, are you making up an NPC or not? Like how is this character gonna be involved in the story? Like, oh, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, my guy owns a bar and he's a bartender and he's got good recipes. Well, you're not going to go into the orc cave. You know what I mean? Okay, so you mix another thing of mead and watch as the players leave.
Not a fun time. I did have a similar situation with that. Ended up working. This Saren, she ended up in this Call of Cthulhu game in versus Strahd. She ended up. I wanted to play some. She said she wanted to play really strange and awful. And because of the world it kind of pseudo set up for the game, steampunk technology, she's like, "What if I just made like a robotic?" And I was like, "All right." And she's asked, "Is like anything weird or specific you would like for this maid that might help her fit in?" So I gave her a description of a NPC character in the game that Strahd, the vampire, is obsessed over because she's the reincarnation of his law. So I gave her that description, and she took and ran with it. She became the maid for Strahd. So she's wandering around the castle while everybody else is exploring outside to seeing how bad things are. Well, she's having direct talks with Strahd and his butler entourage, and like figuring out, oh no, I really don't want to be here. This guy is evil, like capital E evil. But it was such a fun moment of espionage for a character who wouldn't be an adventurer type in this situation. That Curse of Strahd game is easily my lightning in a bottle game. Like, I'll never be able to do anything that good again. I think just it. It was like everything was great. That whole playlist is here on the channel. This is kind of like one that originally started this channel. It's like a video vlog of all our games.
Yeah. But my whole thing started with the forum, the Village Vigilantes forum. It after 20 something years, we finally took it down. They wanted like $500 more to like upgrade it and keep it going for another year. I was like, well, let's just call it a night. So we downloaded all the information. I got it saved, and maybe someday we'll figure out what to do with it.
I apologize to anybody who can hear.
I can't hear anything.
That's good to hear, but apparently the chat can hear. I don't know. At least my wife's in the chat.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to bring us to the end.
Yeah, I got to go eat dinner and go to bed. I go to bed at 9 o'clock for work.
Here at the end of these interviews, I have a tradition that I come from a performance magic background.
Oh, cool.
So I like to show off magicians here at the end of the stream. So,
okay.
Specifically because I brought you on comic book stuff. This here is going to be Rudy Cody, the comic book magician. So,
okay.
Well, I mean, when you meet Rudy Cody.
He's got his legs and his hands are in his pockets.
I do love his little dance. Honestly, it's the hands. Now here comes the rap. John.
Stage magician. It's funny that I'm thinking of I have like a science-based character, and I'm thinking of like a magician-based character to be like a foil. Like maybe they'll be on a team together. And the scientist guy doesn't believe the magic guy has magic powers. I was thinking of something like that, almost like a buddy cop movie. He's a scientist. He's a magician. Can they solve crimes together without driving each other crazy? But that's just like a germ of an idea.
Not the center leg, that was my leg. That's Rudy Cody, everybody.
1990. I was wondering what year it was.
Live. Hello, everybody. All right, so that is going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for coming on, John.
Thanks for having me.
You're such a friendly guy.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the wonderful members of chat for coming. Please support Heroic Tales #2 on Fund My Comics.
Thank you.
Campaign wraps up in 18 days, so get it while you still can.
Yep, I'm going to start having like a closeout campaign, closeout shows pretty soon.
that's going to do it for. I'm Dr. Crow. I've read a book once. My goal to make